And we are live. Welcome to the Sports Sesh podcast. I'm your host, Mason Shatwell, and today joining me is the Ultimate Fighter Season 17 and 25 vet, Gilbert Smith. How you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Being a big fan of the show, it's a pleasure to talk to you, so I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us today. So first thing I'm going to ask is your nickname, Midnight Magic. Where did that one come from?
Honestly, I don't even remember. It was just a joke, but I've had many names. And any name that I found to be comical, I ran with. So like, I had Power Stroke, Midnight Magic, Chocolate Thunder, the Good Guy. Um, Things is kind of slightly inappropriate, and having to make the announcer say it on live TV is always fun. So, yeah.
Well, I'll get straight into the Ultimate Fighter. Obviously, the first season you was on was season 17. How did that come about going onto the show?
Um, Man. So, uh, I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter 2 times prior, and I didn't get picked up mainly because I didn't have the fight record. I was the first time I tried out, I was still an amateur fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know that you couldn't. That you have to have pro fights. I think the season I tried out for is when they made that mandatory, because like with season with Amir Sadala, he won that show with never having a pro fight. Um, so when this season came about, I actually wasn't going to try out, and a friend convinced me to do it. And so I just flew out to Vegas. I did the grappling round, because it's 3 rounds: grappling, hitting pads, and and you excuse me, and you have to meet the producer, and show your personality. So I did that, and it just popped off, and I guess everybody liked me.
I know in the first season you was on, you had to fight your way into the house. Before that fight where you had to fight into the house, was there any extra added nerves going into that fight?
Um, I don't think it was any extra nerves besides what you already would have for any fight. I mean, when the door shut, and it's a fight, like you always gonna be nervous. I was very well prepared for that. And it is kind of weird because you don't know who you're gonna fight until like 2 days before you're gonna fight them. So that was pretty interesting. So you got to kind of prepare for everything, and that's always hard to do. So it was definitely complicated, but as far as the nerves go, I don't think it was any different than. I mean, I get nervous for fights, so like I don't think I was extra nervous for that.
Well, I know during that season, obviously the coaches on the show were John Jones and Chael Sonnen. I know when you was having your fight, obviously there was a bit of hostility between your teammates towards yourself as well, which
Mhm.
was mentioned in the Tough 25. How did that feel, obviously, knowing that you wasn't on the best of terms with your own teammates at the time?
Yeah, it was a lot to deal with because I felt like I wasn't just fighting my opponent, who was Luke Barnett. I was fighting my own teammates, because there was, at the time, a little bit mad that John Jones picked me to be the first fight, because everybody wanted to be the first fight, because you get the most recovery time until the second fight, and if you win the first fight, the team gets to keep control on the next fight pick, and they thought fighting Luke Barnett, was a little bit of a bad matchup, considering Luke Barnett was so tall. He was 6'6", I'm 5'9", which I understood that, but the only thing I didn't like was all the talking behind my back, and nobody really having a good conversation with me. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like, I was ambushed when it all came out, and I was like, damn, this is how y'all feel, and which put me in a bad place, and yeah, it was very difficult to deal with at the time.
Well, I know it was obviously disappointing losing the fight, but with it being the Ultimate Fighter show, you're obviously living with your opponent as well. Did that feel weird at all after losing the fight to Luke and then living with the guy for 6 weeks?
Um, did it feel weird? Yeah, it definitely. I mean, uh, I mean, I
Hmm. Your mic's cut out there, man.
I had
Oh,
someone calling me.
yeah.
Um, After losing the fight, I didn't really care. You know what I'm saying? Like after losing the fight, I was out the tournament. I was done. So it didn't really bother me to live with that guy and stay, because I actually went up to Oregon and trained with them. So it didn't really bother me. Like after after the fight happens, you lose and you're out the tournament, nothing really matters.
Well, with you unfortunately losing in the first fight of the first round, did it feel, well, obviously you was appreciative of the opportunity to still be on the show, because I know in the early days sometimes the fighters would then go home after losing, but with
Yeah.
you, do you think, obviously with how your career went on after that, you had a few more fights, then there was the next series of tough. Do you think having the opportunity to carry on training with them guys that you was training with had any benefit at all?
Yeah, definitely. I love the fact that because after I lost the fight, there was no longer no pressure. So now I could train and learn and didn't have to like deal with the pressure of competing, like so I was able to soak up more information from the coaches and the other guys that was there, and didn't have to worry about competition. So it was a great opportunity for me to grow as a fighter. So and you never know how things could have played out. Someone could have got hurt. I could have stepped up. And I almost came close to happening. Bubba McDaniels was he had an eye injury. No, it wasn't eye injury. Um, it was something that was wrong with him, and it was questioning if he was going to fight Uriah. And I told John Jones, like, hey, if he can't make it, I'll make it. I'm not saying John Jones would have picked me, but uh, I love to have the opportunity, or at least be there where I could have had the opportunity. So, yeah, after the fight, man, it was good times, man. Now I could just joke around, have a good time, and train and for fun, and not have to worry about cutting weight and fighting.
Well, how did the Tough 25 come about? Did you get the call and you would automatically say, right, I'm in?
No, I didn't get the call. In fact, they thought I was still signed to Bellator, and I got released from Bellator. So funny enough, Bubba McDaniels, he's the one that told me about it. And he asked me, he said, hey, man, did the UFC contact you about doing a second season at 170? I was like, nah. And then he was like, I can't do it because I can't make 170. He was like moving up to 205. And I was like, wow, I was kind of hurt that they didn't contact me. But then I thought about it. I was like, they probably think I'm still signed to Bellator. So I directly contacted the producer, and then we went back and forth and we talked, and then that's how I got on. In fact, I still wasn't going to get picked. I went out there, I did the medicals and all that stuff, and they was going to pick Gerard Harris,
Mm-hmm.
and Gerard Harris, and the reason why, because me and Gerard Harris look the same. I literally had people come up to me and thought that I was Gerard Harris. So they didn't want two similar guys looking like on TV. It'd just be weird for the viewers. So they end up picking Gerard Harris, and the weirdest thing happened. Like a week before they supposed to fly out, Gerard Harris blew out his Achilles. And then the producer contacted me and said, hey, someone got injured. Do you want it? And I was like, yes. First of all, I was already sad because they called me and said they're not gonna pick me. And literally like the next day, they end up picking me. Yeah.
Well, I know you on that season. You was on Team TJ, and with the other coach Cody Garbrandt. I know it seemed as a viewer every time they was in the same room, they was at loggerheads. Did that ever get a bit annoying as such for you and the other guys? Obviously, the two main coaches were almost going at it every time they caught eyes.
Yeah. It was definitely frustrating. I mean, it's cool to have a little bit of drama, but like it was like overplayed a little bit, I think. I think, especially because it was like it happened so many years ago, like 2-3 years ago from the time of the season, for them to still be, fighting over that. And it doesn't change anything. Like because TJ had his views and Cody had his views. And the thing is, it wasn't even between TJ and Cody, it was between TJ and Uriah, honestly. But, and as a fighter, it was frustrating, but even as a viewer, because when my episode happened, they more focused on the altercation between TJ and Cody Garbrandt over me fighting Seth, which I think it was a very big fight because here I was the last one picked for TJ, and I was fighting Cody Garbrandt, number one pick. So that's the storyline in itself that I don't think they really got a lot of emphasis on it. And I beat their number one guy, and it could have been a big thing for me, but it was kind of really overshadowed because of the altercation between TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. Obviously, you was TJ's last pick, and you ended up fighting Cody's first pick, and Cody chose that fight. Did you feel? Well, I know in the show you said, but do you still feel like that was a bit disrespectful as such, thinking that Seth was going to be able to defeat you easily?
Yeah, I mean, now I don't care, because obviously I proved them wrong. So I'm not walking around with a chip on my shoulder. But at the time, I was pissed. I was pissed to be the last one picked because I know I had bigger credentials and I fought in bigger fights. I was a world champion, for the RFA. I've done more in the sport than some of those guys that got picked before me. And I think just because of personal relationships, because I don't I guess I don't have a big name and whatever kiss and be, and I don't know. So it was very frustrating to sit there and watch all these guys that I know that I'm better than get picked before me, and then to get picked for the first fight. So it kind of told me that they didn't think I was that good, and they thought I was going to be an easy win for somebody. So yeah, I definitely had a chip on my shoulder, and I definitely felt like I needed to prove them wrong. In fact, I talked to Danny Castillo, who was on Cody Garbrandt's team. He's one of the coaches for them. And later on in the show, I asked him, why'd you pick that fight? And he was like, he said, honestly, because how much I weighed, I came in weighing super heavy, but that's just where I am. And I cut a lot of weight. I'm very professional about that. He said, I weighed so much. And he said, when we had open workout, he said he saw foaming at my mouth, like I was already sucked out. And so they thought that I was going to be a hard weight cut, which would drain me for the fight. Obviously, they was wrong.
Yeah. How did it feel to prove Cody and his team wrong after taking out their number one pick at the time?
It felt good. I mean, it felt good, to get a win. And it felt good to get a win over a legit dude. It wasn't some unnamed guy like in the first season, when I beat Eric Wallen to get in the house. Who's Eric Wallen? Nobody knows. I don't think he did anything since. But beating Seth, Seth Petrozek, I can never say his name. I always screwed it up. After all these years, you'd think I'd be able to say his name correctly. Apologize, Seth. But no offense here. But Seth had a decent career in the UFC. I mean, everybody's going to have the up and down. He had a couple good wins. He had a couple good, bad losses. But he had a real name, and he beat some legit dudes. So to go in there and beat him, I think it solidified me as a good fighter. You know what I'm saying?
Well, obviously, unfortunately, you ended up losing the next fight to, I believe it was Diego Lima.
Did I really lose it?
No. Yeah, as a viewer, I had you winning that fight.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I love Diego Lima. This is one of those things that's always going to sit hard for me. And it's not his fault, you know what I'm saying? The judges picked, I watched that fight 1,000 times. And I don't know how I lost the first and second round. I really don't. I don't know why we went to a third round. But, kudos on him. The judges sent us to a third round, and he was able to take me down and dominate a little bit on the ground until I was able to reverse it and get back up. But, he did what he needed to do to win that third round. I just think we should never went to the third round. Our first and second round was mine. But and then I think I should have got called to fight back in the UFC. So that was it was a tough go.
Yeah, like you said, as a viewer, I had you winning the first two rounds, but obviously after that fight, you ended up having a retirement, and I know you've fought since. But when that moment happened, obviously everybody was in the cage, and I think it was one of the few moments that we see in TJ and Cody not go at it. Do you think that made it any more special to have everyone all there together as one for your retirement at the time?
Yeah, the producer to the show said, That was the greatest moment in the Ultimate Fighter season. You know, for my retirement and how I did it, and like it was the greatest um uh, uh, uh thing that happened on the Ultimate Fighter. It probably not gonna get the biggest the biggest replay. Like if they go over the 10 craziest moments in the Ultimate Fighter, it's not gonna be part of that because they're looking for people that peed in each other food or the house fights or the drunken, like the stuff that, like, you know, that just really stupid. But
Mhm.
that moment, and coming off of a hard fight, a fight of the season with two friends, two teammates, and having me retire and bringing in both the coaches, and I think the speech that I gave, I honestly believe that was one of the number one moments in the Ultimate Fighter history, and the accumulation of all the factors.
Yeah, 100%. As you say, accumulation of everything with the beef that the coaches had and how everyone came together at the moment. But there's something I wanted to ask you as well. Obviously, on your team, you had the guys such as yourself, Jesse Taylor, Tom Glicchio, Diego Lima. Do you think that gave Team TJ an advantage having all you guys in one team training with each other day in, day out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously TJ picked a better team, you know, with the most talent. Um, and we gelled together. We trained hard. It got a little weird at the end because, you know,
Yeah.
obviously we had to start fighting each other because we kind of ran through Cody Garbrandt's team. Um, but you know, it was a great experience. You know, I really enjoyed the opportunity training alongside those guys.
How good of a coach was TJ Dillashaw during the time on the show?
I honestly think that TJ was one of my best coaches I ever had, even within a small amount of time. Because, like, if you look at the factors, when TJ Dillashaw, you know, he's just a good coach. He knows wrestling. Okay, he knows striking. Then also, he knows how to be a world champion. He got that level of experience. He's been in big gyms with big name guys and know how to deal with all that. So, and he brought in some really great coaches. So, you know, it was one of the best experience in my fight career. I've been around some great coaches, but I think he's the most well-rounded coach I ever had. And plus, like, he's a world champion, and he was willing to grind with us. He was willing to do the practice with us, grapple with us, you know, move around with us. It wasn't like someone is come and give instructions and sit on the sideline screaming. So
Well, you mentioned about your weight cuts before, about how Cody and his team thought it wouldn't have been as easy as it was. How did your weight cuts throughout your whole career go? Was they usually gone quite smoothly?
yeah, I mean, I never had an issue. It's always been tough, you know, especially when I started moving down to 170. It was very draining. I've a lot of trial and error, a lot of some mistakes, you know, but I always made weight. Um, I think later on in my career, it became a little easier, but it was always a task. Like, I lose 30 pounds. Like, I'm cutting from 200 to 170 every time. Um, but you know, I was always a professional about it. So the show is different because, like, you have to fight within a week or so, you know, again. So, like, you have to weight cut. So, and I did balloon back up. You know, I went from 170 to 197, you know, on the show, and I had to cut back down, and that's all within like 2 weeks. So that was a little special, but you know, part of the game.
I know after the Ultimate Fighter season 25, you ended up fighting one more time within MMA. What
Hmm.
made you want to go back for the last fight of your career?
Because I retired on the show, but I didn't think it was fair for me to retire and not have my family there,
Hmm.
not do it live, not where my parents, my kids, my teammates, everybody can be there. So I had one more fight in Colorado, you know, for the LFA at the First Bank Center, and I had the opportunity to have my whole family, even people who never, like my father, my sister, my grandmother, they've never been to any one of my fights.
Hmm.
So it was really special to have them there. Mask.
That was going to be my next question. How supportive was your family throughout your whole career?
Um, Great. Everybody's been super supportive. You know, I never had any issues. Uh, you know, I think a lot of it just came out of the air for them. It wasn't something like they knew because I was in the Army, so I was doing something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like my family, it was all been supportive, and I still train every day, twice a day. I'm still in shape, very, very competitive. I'm a better fighter now than I was even on the show. Usually a lot of my old friends, that's like Factory X, Anthony Smith, Zach Cummings, whatever. A lot of those guys will hit me up to do sparring, especially if they're fighting like a southpaw.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always able to go up there and do good 3 rounds and give them good work. So I'm super competitive as far as skill set and in conditioning. My body's perfect. And the only reason why I don't continue to keep fighting is like, I know I'm 39. The UFC is not going to sign a 39-year-old fighter, and I don't want to fight in a bunch of small shows just to say I'm fighting. So
Yeah.
I'm either going to be in the big show or at least have an opportunity to get to the big show. Like even if if I won 20 fights in a row, the UFC still won't sign me. So like I'm just not going to do that to my body and still get nowhere, and then win a couple fights and then maybe lose a fight and start out. Nah, I'm too old to go through those up and downs and to fight tough ass dudes, because who I am with my record, I'm not gonna get no chumps. I don't think I ever got any chumps. So I'm gonna be fighting tough ass dudes, making shit money, because if you're not fighting in a big show, there's no real big money out there. So like, I'm just not gonna do that to myself.
I'm just going to wind back to the beginning of your career. What got you into mixed martial arts in the first place?
I wrestled a little bit in high school, wrestled a little bit in college. I thought I felt like I was strong, athletic, and I got into jiu-jitsu through practicing capoeira. Did a bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments. I was winning them, and the guys I was beating was fighters. You know what I'm saying? Like we would talk afterwards and be like, "Hey, good match." And and they were like, "Yeah, I fight MMA, got a couple fights." I'm like, "Dang, you fight? I just choked you out in a couple minutes." So I started thinking like, maybe I should give it a try, and so I jumped head first into it, traveled the world, trained all over, and I just started fighting and winning.
Who would you say has been the best fighter you've personally trained with?
The best fighter?
Yeah. If there's one.
I don't know, man. I've trained with some really good guys, man. The Camozzi's, Chris Camozzi, Brian Camozzi is one of my best training partners. My own guys, some of my students like Malcolm and Benjamin, training with Anthony Smith, Zach Cummings, everybody from the Ultimate Fighter, right? Like I could just run down that whole list of guys. Training with Uriah Hall, man, it's super tough to say that. I guess I go back to champion wise. I mean, I trained under John Jones with him and TJ Dillashaw, both champions. Jiu-jitsu wise, trained with Marcelo Garcia, my idol. Um, I mean, so many different people for different reasons. Because some of them was like my training partners. Some of them was like kind of like my coach / training partners. Some of them was people I trained, and they all was very supportive. So yeah, that's a hard one just to pick one person.
If you could name one person, who would you say has been your toughest opponent that you faced in the cage?
I guess it'd have to be someone I lost to, right? It's kind of hard to pick someone I beat and say that's my toughest opponent. My toughest opponent probably was Chidi Kawanji, if I'm saying his name right. And because we fought 5 rounds, and he won by decision. But just fighting someone that tall and that long was very complicated for me, and I didn't prepare right, because I didn't have the right sparring partners to come up with a game plan to deal with that type of length and height. And he's like 6'4" with a reach of 80 inches, and he missed weight by 5 pounds. So he was longer than me, taller than me, and naturally bigger than me. And he had a good game plan. You know what I'm saying? I was able to win the first round, and then from there he made adjustments that made it very difficult for me to get my game plan going. So, kudos to him. And I guess you could put Luke Barnett in that same category, because he was 6'6". another super tall guy that I didn't have no time to prepare for, because I find out I was fighting him like in 2 or 3 days. So, so those were very difficult matches for me.
Well, obviously, mixed martial arts is made up of every combat sport you can imagine. What would you say is the most important martial arts within MMA?
I mean, do I have to tell you?
Wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling. If you don't know how to wrestle, then don't do MMA. If you don't like wrestling, don't do MMA. If you can't wrestle, don't do MMA. If you don't want to wrestle, don't do MMA. That's it. I hate people like, man, I just want someone to sit them, just strike with me. Like, oh, I just want to do jiu-jitsu. Let's grapple. No. Like, you see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys can't get the fight to the ground, and then they look horrible. One of the best guys, like Damian Maia, like, if he gets you to the ground, forget about it. But, like, he had a hard time getting, Tyron Woodley to the ground. And so that fight it was a mess. So if you're a striker and you don't know how to wrestle, like, you see a lot of guys like the strikers, and they get knocked out because they don't have any other options. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you could think you're a striker, but then the other guy's a little bit better, and you don't have any other options. And like and that's the beauty of MMA. You have options. So if you don't know how to wrestle, man, like, it's gonna be a long day. Like, it's gonna be a tough career.
I've spoken to a lot of fighters and ex-fighters, and they've had mixed answers to this question. Would you say the mental aspect of MMA is more important than the physical?
Yeah, that's because, like, I've seen a lot of gym champions. They're fucking beasts, man, in the gym. They're beasts. Like, you don't even want to spar with them because it's going to be like a damn near fight. They're rough, they're tough, they're strong, they're athletic, they're fast, they're skilled. And, like, it's like, damn, like, it's like you feel like you should be getting paid just to spar with them. But then you put them in a cage when it really matters, and they fold. And you're like, how the hell how did he lose? And he lost to that guy? How did that happen? And it's just because, Floyd Mayweather said it the best. He's like, we all spar the same. We hit the bags the same. We hit the mitts the same. We do the strength and conditioning the same. But when the lights come on, we all don't perform the same. And that's what made Floyd Mayweather the best. He's like, I lost rounds in the gym. Like, there was a lot of times I took losses. I didn't show up and I didn't have my best day at the gym. But he said, when the lights come on, I'm 100% ready. And that's all mental.
Which fight would you say you've been most nervous for out of your career, or are the nerves usually the same going into each fight?
Most nervous for it's probably like coming off the Ultimate Fighter season 13. I mean season 17. That first fight out of the UFC, because, like, I lost 2 fights in a row. I lost to Luke Barnett and I lost to Bubba McDaniels in the finale. So I was like, damn, I can't take a third loss. And I was fighting someone that I had a little bit of a background controversy with. And he was talking some smack. And I was like, damn, I can't lose to this guy. And, like, I've been to the top. I've been to the UFC, and I'm going to come back home to fight in Colorado and lose to some local Colorado guy. I mean, no offense to the Colorado guys, but it's like I'm trying to get back to the top. So if I can't win here locally, there's no way I could win on the national stage. So that was a big one. And luckily for me, I finished that guy in the 3rd round. His name was Jason Lee. So I was actually kind of super nervous for that fight.
Well, I know you went pro all the way back in 2011 now, and if you could, how would you assess the career you had within mixed martial arts?
Fast and furious, man. Like I went, I had my first fight 2009. 2 years later, I went pro. About a year and a half, I was fighting in the Ultimate Fighter. Like, I didn't have a good amount of time to develop, and I was just fighting off of pure talent. Like, I didn't have a bunch of big coaches, and came from a big gym. And, I went from fighting locally here in Colorado Springs at the City Auditorium, which is like a small little venue, small little local promotion, to literally fighting to Mandalay Bay in the UFC. That's literally how it went. And I did it all on my own. Like, I had coaches, but I had coaches I was coaching. I was teaching them how to train me. So, it was, it was fast and furious. I wish I could have slowed it down a little bit, but I was older too, man. So like I had to get the shit done. So I couldn't really take time and really develop. So, but I still got a lot done. With a short amount of time I fought, and the small resources that I had, I've done a lot. So I'm proud.
100%. And I know you've got your own gym now. How did that come about, owning your own gym?
Yeah, so like in Colorado Springs, like I said, I really didn't have a big name gym, or I didn't have the American top teams and the AKAs and stuff like that. So I had to create a spot for me, and then that's what I did. I created a spot, started teaching, and I was learning a lot just because I was teaching, and I was able to develop a school here, and we got some good fighters. We just had 3 guys fight Saturday, and all of them did very well. And so look like 2021 is starting off on a good note. So it's been a pleasure, and starting the school it was tough because I was doing it at the same time I was fighting, but it really came out of necessity of just having a place that I could train at.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you could choose one guy out of your gym, who would you say is the most exciting prospect for us viewers to watch in 2021?
Oh man, we got a couple guys, man. Like you said, I'm not gonna say and pick just one. Like my man Dylan King, he's one of our pros. He's gonna make a come up. Hector Leon, another one of our pros, gonna make a huge come up. Both from 135. So, when things get burning again, they're gonna be pushing each other to the top. We got another 125er. He just fought this weekend. Such a Joseph Hurd, state champion wrestler, wrestling college. We got some really good up and comers. So there's still it's still a new gym. The one thing I'm gonna say that all my guys are homegrown, meaning that they start with nothing. They may have had a little wrestling, but as far as the striking and jiu-jitsu, they all coming here and learning, and we're being very successful with it. So, some gyms, they able to recruit other guys is already good. Like you get guys already in the UFC going to a new gym, and that's fine. Hopefully I could get there where people could see the value of coming here to Colorado Springs with a high altitude and everything we have to offer in our gym. And our gym is one of the most equipped gyms here. We got a cage, a ring, a lot of equipment, a sauna, a lot of mat space, workout equipment, and just a very awesome place where you get one-stop shop. So hopefully I could build this place up where we get people that want to come and visit and do training camps here. So, now that I'm totally focused on this gym and no longer fighting, we're going to get there.
100%. I've only got a few more questions because I appreciate your time. One more about your career yourself. Would you say there's been anything you regret doing?
No. Everything played out the way it was supposed to. I wish I had more opportunities. I mean, it's nothing I regret doing. I just wish I wish people saw my talent a little early on. When I won the RFA belt, I won it by beating Benjamin Smith by armbar, and I defended it by breaking Bristol Morunde's jaw in the 4th round, who's also a UFC vet. And I still didn't get picked up by the UFC. But the next guy that won because I got picked up by Bellator, so I vacated the belt. But the next person that won that belt, they got picked up. The next person after that won that belt, they got picked up. And the next person after that won the belt, they got picked up. And I'm like, damn it. Like, how come when I won the belt and defended it, and I still didn't get picked up? So, and I was both finishes. 2 different finishes. One using jiu-jitsu and one using striking. So, but that's something I have no control over. As far as my regrets, anything I've done, I think I did the best that I could do with what I had, and I'm happy with it.
Well, I've just got a couple more. One thing I wanted to ask, since it's topical within MMA and boxing now, obviously the YouTube star Jake Paul's been calling every name under the sun out from the UFC and MMA. What do you make of that?
I make nothing out of it, man. People trying to make money. They trying to clout chase. Whatever, you got to get your hustle on, man. I'm not gonna sit here and judge anyone. If he's gonna get paid a lot of money and Ben Askren, I guess he's taking the fight. He's gonna get paid a lot of money. I won't order to watch it. I'll probably watch the highlights of someone, someone like, download it as watch it for free. I won't pay for it, but I can't knock the hustle. You know what I'm saying? Jake Paul hit me up and said, "Hey man, I'll give you $100,000 to come fight." Shit, I would too. So yeah.
And then last thing from me, if you could give a piece of advice to young amateur fighters, what would it be?
I tell them to dream big, man. Dream big, but grind bigger. Don't let your dream be bigger than your grind. You know what I'm saying? And if you're willing to do that, you'll be successful. Be smart. Be conscious of your effort. And leave nothing on the table, man. Dream big. Dream so big that people will laugh at you. Dream so big that it scares you. But fucking grind harder.
Couldn't agree more. And that last thing, it's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on. As a fan of the Ultimate Fighter, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, man. Take care.
No problem, brother. You have a good day.
You too.
Yeah.